My family comes from a lineage of physiognomists, capable of discerning the uncertainties of life and death. The eldest sister can distinguish good from evil in people, the second sister knows the length of one's life, and I can see how others will die, except for the fourth sister, who was adopted and only knows how to cling to my leg. After my father passed away, the emperor arranged marriages for us, during the grand hall selection for husbands. The eldest and second sisters chose the imperial uncle and the crown prince, leaving only the prime minister and the general. The fourth sister knelt and begged me to tell her who had the best fate. I pointed to the prime minister, but the fourth sister didn't believe I was telling the truth and rushed to choose the young general who had feelings for me. She thought she was clever, assuming I was holding back, but she didn't know that from the moment I first saw her, I could see she would die by my hand. Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. My father is the world's top fortune teller. Every word he has ever spoken has come true. The most famous incident was when the capital was drenched by 3 days of relentless rain, yet he told others that a great fire would break out in the alley east of the city at night. No one believed him, and they even started placing bets. Vying to wager against his prediction, all 10 households in the alley joined forces, extinguishing their lanterns and refraining from lighting any candles. I swore to ruin my father's reputation, but just before midnight, as the night watchman's clapper sounded, a great fire broke out at the end of the alley. Fortunately, everyone was on high alert, so it didn't lead to a major disaster. It was later revealed to be a scandalous affair. A young lady met her lover late at night. They had always met under the eaves by lamplight, but yesterday they had to light a lantern to see each other, their affection for one another overflowing. A gust of wind arose, the lantern overturned, flames burst forth, the lover fled, and the lady's reputation was ruined. People pointed fingers at her, fabricating stories to the fullest extent, adding insult to injury. This young lady then came to seek out my father. My father thought she had come to cause trouble, but unexpectedly, the young lady had come specifically with a heavy sum of money to thank him for helping her see through the heartless man and avoid a lifetime of hardship. That was the first meeting between my father and mother. They spent over a decade together in unwavering love and trust. During those years, my father refused to tell fortunes for anyone, whether they were high officials, powerful figures, or extraordinary talents. Until I was 10 years old, my mother passed away due to illness. The illness came on suddenly and fiercely. Before the medicine on the stove had even finished brewing, she had already departed this world. Only in her final moments did she speak 8 words to us 4 sisters. Do not be confused by schemes, do not be trapped by tactics. Our family has 4 daughters, and 3 of us have learned the art of fortune-telling, except for the youngest sister. After my mother passed away, my father became deeply depressed, but after half a month, he resumed telling fortunes for others. After more than a decade had passed, people had almost forgotten about him, but my father became even more arrogant than before, not only predicting people's fates but even daring to foretell life and death. He used to say that such matters were heavenly secrets and should not be revealed. I suppose my father no longer wished to live. Over these 5 years, my father had established his reputation as the world's foremost diviner through the countless lives he had judged. 5 years later, the person he had been waiting for finally arrived. The visitor appeared to be around 50, with sharp eyes and brows, wrapped in a heavy cloak, and surrounded by numerous attendants. Some were dark and thin, with stern expressions, while others were fair-skinned and soft-spoken, moving with gentle grace, each one exercising the utmost caution. The current situation at court is unpredictable and treacherous. Can you divine who the future emperor will be? My father laid out 4 copper coins. The fate of the imperial throne lies with no more than these 4 individuals. In this world, there is nothing my father doesn't know. When my mother was still alive, he used all his skills to make her happy. My mother would ask him when the price of rice would rise, when it would rain, and when it would snow. My father was quite helpless. Why don't you ask about something more important? My mother sat under the eaves watching the falling snow, warming her hands by the stove. What counts as important? Do I need to know who will become the emperor? I was about to run over with the plum blossoms when I unintentionally overheard my father's reply. Of course. Many people are inquiring about this. I believe the future emperor will be one of these. Crown Prince Zhao Che, Chancellor Kui Song, young General Li Shenjie, or Imperial Uncle Zhao Mingcheng. 5 years later, my father also uttered these 4 names. Because of this one sentence, the entire family was imprisoned. That person was the current emperor, and the only answer he wanted to hear was the Crown Prince's name. The emperor publicly claimed that my father was spreading heresy and ordered the execution of my entire family, and in secret, he personally went to the imperial prison to interrogate my father, demanding the name of the future emperor. My father sat upright on the earthen floor, his face covered by his hair, looking as withered as a dead tree. My daughter, who carries my bloodline, can divine her husband's fate. After saying these words, he closed his eyes for a long time. The emperor asked the crowd, "Who is his daughter?" In the dimly lit prison cell, the eldest and second sisters remained calm as usual, while I sat in the corner, slightly lost in thought. The fourth sister clung to my arm in fear, refusing to let go. Third sister, I don't know anything. She was only 15, just past the age of coming of age, and had always been timid. That year, I accompanied my mother to the temple to burn incense. On our way down the mountain, a heavy rain poured down, and a little beggar chasing a puppy fell silently into a mud puddle, blocking our carriage. I only glanced at her once, and then asked my mother to save her. That's why, for the past 10 years, fourth sister has always been closer to me. I lifted her face, making her look into my eyes. "Trust me, you'll be fine, really." I squeezed her palm. "Of course, you know my skills." We were brought before the emperor. He was also somewhat surprised. No wonder, it was said to be among 4 people, and it turns out he happens to have 4 daughters. My father's surname is Ming, and the names he gave us were quite simple: Wang Chun, Wenxia, Wenqiu, and Jedong, in that order. The emperor asked for our names and then inquired about our skills in fortune-telling and divination. The first to respond was my eldest sister, Ming Wangchun. "I can discern the good and evil in people. They say you can know a person's face but not their heart." But for the eldest sister, she could tell at a single glance whether someone was good or evil. The emperor said, "Whether a person is good or evil, even if you say it, it cannot be proven." The second to respond was Ming Wenxia. "This humble woman can know a person's lifespan." The emperor became interested. Then, "How long do you think I will live?" The second sister bowed and kowtowed. "Your Majesty, may you live 10,000 years without worry." The emperor did not believe such perfunctory words. "You dare not say it." Then, among the people present, "Tell me who has the nearest death date. I want to see if it comes true." Second sister straightened up, looked around, slowly raised her hand, and pointed to the corner. "Him." The emperor followed her gaze. "Him." He was an unremarkable-looking guard who instantly dropped to his knees, his face turning a shade paler, his body trembling slightly. I knelt beside my second sister and took the chance to glance up, but I was stunned by the scene before me. I forced myself to steady my nerves and noticed that the guard had lowered his head even further, but moved his hand toward his foot, his fingertips resting on the inside of his boot. Only a short blade could be hidden there. The emperor strode toward him, but the guard suddenly lunged forward, a cold glint of silver flashing in his hand. "An assassin!" Panicked cries erupted all around. I grabbed a handful of dirt from the ground and threw it at the man's face, then drew the emperor's long sword and thrust it forward with both hands, piercing the man's chest. The guard, with bloodshot eyes, weakly lowered his head as blood dripped down the blade. This was the first time I had killed someone. Breathing heavily, still shaken, I turned to look at the emperor, but the first person I saw was fourth sister. She looked back at me in a panic. She clung to the emperor as if ready to sacrifice herself to protect him. In contrast, my eldest and second sisters, who were closer, remained kneeling where they were. This actually calmed me down. I threw aside the sword and knelt back down. The emperor glanced at the fourth princess beside him, coldly pushed her away, and walked up to me. "What's your name?" "Ming Wenqiu." "Do you know martial arts?" "No." He took half a step forward. "Then what was that just now?" I slowly raised my head and met his gaze. "My talent is the ability to foresee death. As long as I see that person, I can see the scene of their death." Compared to the previous 2, I shocked the emperor. I reached out my palm, and the base of my thumb was deeply cut by the blade. Today was my first time wielding a sword, but it was merely a matter of seizing the moment. The emperor examined my palm, then picked up the sword, slowly turning it over in his hand. "So that means you can also see my fate." "Yes, a peaceful end to your days." The emperor chuckled non-committally, then turned his gaze around the room, settling on the fourth sister. The fourth sister panicked and knelt on the ground. The eldest sister spoke on her behalf. "This is our fourth sister, an adopted daughter. She doesn't know how to divine fortunes." The emperor held the sword, lifting her chin with its tip, slowly raising it. I didn't expect there to be a filler participant. The fourth sister was also forced to look up. Seeing the emperor show no sign of stopping, she actually stood up, her body trembling slightly as if terrified. "Why, Your Majesty?" The emperor turned his head coldly, glanced at the eldest sister, then at the second sister, and finally fixed his gaze on my face. I don't believe it. If you're really that accurate, then why don't you tell me? Will I kill her? Of course not. The first time I laid eyes on fourth sister, I saw the manner of her death. Fourth sister, dressed in the empress's palace robes, her face twisted with madness, raised a dagger to strike the woman before her, only to be pierced through the chest by an arrow that shot through the air. She immediately lost her footing. As if anticipating this, the woman pulled out a golden hairpin and thrust it forcefully into her throat. At this thought, I spoke truthfully, "Your Majesty will not kill her." The next second, the sword was thrust forward, effortlessly piercing fourth sister's left chest. Fourth sister frantically tried to cover the wound with her hands, but blood gushed out between her fingers as if unstoppable. Her knees buckled heavily, and she collapsed to the ground. The emperor withdrew the sword, wiped the blood from his hands, his voice icy cold. "Take her back to the palace for treatment. If she cannot be saved, kill all 4 of them." 2 months later, my 2 elder sisters and I entered the imperial palace. I heard that the fourth sister had long recovered from her injuries and was serving the emperor day and night, even having clashed with one of the consorts. Today, the emperor not only summoned us to the palace but also called for the 4 individuals my father had mentioned. He intended to arrange marriages for us. On the left side of the grand hall sat 4 men, each carrying themselves with an air of nobility and extraordinary presence. 5 embroidered screens stretched across the hall, allowing glimpses of the figures on the other side through the gaps, from left to right. The 2 younger ones were the general and the crown prince, both around 18 or 19 years old, the general exuding vigor, the crown prince dignified. The strikingly handsome young man was the prime minister, and the slightly older one on the far right was the virtuous imperial uncle. My eldest and second sisters were whispering to each other, leaving me neglected on the side. Over the years, they have always kept their distance from me, as if I were some kind of heinous criminal. Not long after, the emperor arrived and took his seat on the high throne. "I wish to see which of you 4 sisters has the sharpest eye." The fourth sister followed behind him, dressed like a noble lady. Seeing us seated behind the screen, she hurried over to my side. Third sister, she sat down close to me, and I reached out to take her hand, inadvertently pressing against her wrist. I know how to take a pulse. Her injuries have truly healed completely. Such a severe injury, even for a martial artist, would likely cost half their life. Third sister, she said, unaware of my thoughts, lowering her voice. "His Majesty has promised me that I can choose with you first." She turned to look at me, her tone full of concern. "If eldest sister and the others choose first," I refused. "Only by letting them choose first can we learn their information." "You mean, whoever big sister chooses shows who has the best character. And whoever second sister chooses shows who will live the longest. But what's left for us then is either a wicked person or someone short-lived." I looked from a distance at those 4. A wicked person might not necessarily lose in a fight. As for being short-lived, it's not me who'll be short-lived. Knowing yourself and your opponent is what matters most. Fourth sister was clearly hesitating. She wanted to choose first, but without my talent, she had no basis to make a selection. "I trust my sister." The eldest sister picked up the jade pendant from the palace attendant's tray, walked around the screen, and appeared before everyone. Crown Prince Zhao Che was known for his pure kindness, treating others with warmth and courtesy. 3 years ago, he personally went to the southwest to provide disaster relief, living and eating alongside the common people. During the hardest times, he even slaughtered his own steed to cook and share with the victims, but unexpectedly, the eldest sister did not choose the crown prince, instead handing the jade pendant to Prince Yan. Prince Yan, Zhao Chengming, was the emperor's half-brother, known for his steady temperament and shrewdness, and a staunch supporter of the crown prince in the court. But since the eldest sister chose him, it means he must be a good person. I just need to remember that. Prince Yan was also surprised to be the first one chosen, showing a slight look of astonishment before accepting it. He already has a princess consort, so taking in another woman is of little consequence. The second sister chose the crown prince, that is to say, the crown prince has the longest lifespan. She placed the jade pendant on a corner of the table. Zhao Che slightly raised his eyes, his expression unperturbed, not reaching out to touch it, as if nothing had happened. "It's almost my turn." I was about to rise from my seat when fourth sister grabbed my hand, knelt down directly, her voice choked with urgency. "Sister, don't go. How should I choose? I beg you, can you tell me who will have the best outcome in the future?" I was momentarily stunned. I cannot say. The moment I first lay eyes on someone, what I see is not their face, but the scene of their final moments before death, it feels terrifying and eerie. Just like these four people sitting together chatting and laughing, what appears before my eyes is, he starved to the brink of death, disguised as a suicide by hanging. He was stabbed through from behind, he passed away from illness amidst the palace's sorrow, he was poisoned and buried alive as a sacrifice. I cannot say it, just as I cannot tell fourth sister that it might very well be me who, in the future, will personally kill her. How could I possibly say it, especially since I was present at every death? But in this situation, if I don't speak, she won't let go, and even the palace attendants who noticed what was happening here didn't urge me to leave. Then I understood whose intention it was. Don't cry, I'll tell you. After careful consideration, I made up my mind. Choose Chancellor Qui. In that instant, the crying stopped immediately, her voice turning cold. Third sister, tell me, should I trust you? She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, stood up expressionlessly, picked up the jade pendant, and turned to leave. She walked so fast, trying to cut in front of me, and in my haste, I didn't even manage to grab her sleeve. Two palace attendants had already stopped me. By His Majesty's order, the fourth young lady may choose first at any time, so, she had been deceiving me from the moment she sat down, merely trying to win my favor. She truly and completely played me. Fourth sister didn't believe what I said. She didn't choose Chancellor Qui Song, but instead chose General Li Shenji. When Li Shenji saw it was her, his face stiffened, his fingers curled slightly. He didn't take the jade pendant. Nor did he look at her. Instead, he looked at me from behind the screen, his gaze complex. He is the only one among these four who has never been married. He has feelings for me. The ancestral home of the Li family is in the East City Lane, long abandoned and uninhabited. At the age of 10, I climbed over the wall to catch an escaped parrot and first met the young General Li Shuanga, who flew up the tree and caught it for me. 3 years later, my mourning period ended, one summer day. We met by chance while boating on the lake, surrounded by shades of deep green and soft pink. He rode into the depths and picked a lotus to give me. The leaf was round, large, and tender green. The flower, a trembling pink that filled my heart with joy. If fourth sister hadn't pulled this trick, I would have chosen Li Shuanga. I took the jade pendant, rubbing it with my fingertips, and hesitantly stepped out. As he passed by the crown prince's seat, holding his teacup, he suddenly spoke. Those who have been chosen can also choose again. The crown prince said this because he wanted me to choose him. After my father's death, my two elder sisters and I were the only remaining physiognomists in the world. We were already extraordinary talents, especially me. If I were to pledge my loyalty to him, it would be of great assistance. Li Shuanga accidentally knocked against the table, making a noise. If I were to choose Li Shuanga at this moment, claiming it was due to personal affection, I doubt anyone would believe me. They would only think I foresaw his rise to the throne. Instead, it would only implicate him and make him a target in the eyes of the imperial family. But if I choose the crown prince, my talent is somewhat linked to my second sister's, and if I try to lie to cover it up, we would only end up restraining each other. I had no choice but to continue forward, stopping in front of Chancellor Qui Song. Qui Song held a teacup in one hand, glanced up at me with calm eyes. And with the other hand, he took the jade pendant. I chose him, neither merit nor fault. The emperor arranged marriages for us one by one. When it was Li Shuanga's turn, he repeatedly declined, earning a reprimand from the emperor. The eldest and second sisters were named as concubines. The fourth sister became a general's wife, and I became Qui Song's concubine. At the palace gate, Li Shuanga caught up with me. Qui Song consciously stepped aside. When Chiu, what happened today was not my intention. Even if I marry her, I would never. I immediately interrupted Li Shuanga. Young general, we are both betrothed to others. You must not say such things to me. He fell silent, his gaze slightly downcast. Fourth sister hurried over from behind. Third sister, are you concerned about my feelings? A man, I can easily give him to you, she said, raising an eyebrow and looking at Li Shuanga as if he were a trophy. After all, what I want isn't the person, but the status I'll have in the future. Jie Dong approached me, a slight smile curving her lips. If you're willing, sister, we can work together. Even if I marry him, I won't overstep in the slightest. Li Shuanga turned around with his hands behind his back. No need, I'm not like you, so skilled in this art. I had no intention of collaborating with Li Shuanga and her. That evening, I stayed at the Qui residence. Qui Song and his wife had been married for 3 years, deeply devoted to each other. With no concubines or maidservants in the household, the emperor granted him 10 days of leave. Kui Song only spent the first day sitting quietly in my room for half the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. I have heard something about the imperial prison. It is said that the Ming family are descendants of physiognomists, and especially the young lady can foresee the moment of a person's death. Even the crown prince wanted to take her under his wing, but today in the grand hall, choosing me was a last resort. I met Kui Song's gaze. Since I have made my choice, Your Excellency. You may speak frankly, even if you want me to divine fate, it is not out of the question. Kui Song lowered his head, using the tea lid to skim the foam. I want to know, how will I die? What I see is, his figure, holding a long sword, stands quietly in a pool of blood, facing a madwoman with bloodshot eyes sitting before him. Suddenly, a sword is thrust fiercely into his back from behind. I slowly speak. My lord, are you sure you wish to know, if I speak? The prophecy is often bound to come true. I didn't wait for him to stop me, so I had to continue. My lord will be pierced through the heart by a sword and die. Kui Song's fingers trembled slightly as he set down his teacup. Who is it? I don't know. I lowered my eyes and softened my voice. I only saw that the person struck from behind, and my lord was completely defenseless. Perhaps you should be wary of those around you. After a long while, Kui Song stood up. Repeating the words "those around you" under his breath, he looked up toward the window and clenched his fist. But I have no desire to rule the world. I only wish to live peacefully with Aheng. For the next 9 days, Kui Song did not step over my threshold again. I was also content to be neglected by him. The crown prince holds the legitimate advantage, commanding the imperial guards of the capital. The virtuous king had the support of the royal clan, raising troops in the fief of Yangling. Not to mention Li Shuangge, whose father Li Zon had entrenched himself in the northern frontier for over a decade, commanding an army of 200,000. In contrast, Kui Song came from the highest nobility, the son of a union between the prestigious Qinghe Kui and Yuanling Song clans, a top scholar in his youth, and a leader of the upright officials at court, a scion of a noble family, elegant and refined as an orchid or jade tree, with the appearance of an immortal descended to earth. No matter how handsome he may be, without an army, how could he become one of the four? It wasn't until I met Kui Song's wife, Yang Heng, the only daughter of the Duke of Sheng. The Duke of Sheng was a founding hero and the sworn brother of Emperor Gaozu. In addition to being granted a title for his merits, he was also allowed to retain a private army. In principle, if the Duke of Sheng were to pass away, and if Yang Heng had a son, this army would be inherited by him. The first time I saw Yang Heng, she was bent over her desk writing, her hand propping up her chin, a large honey-yellow jade bracelet dangling from her slender, delicate wrist. I watched the scene unfold. The mansion was ablaze with firelight. She was hunched over the desk, writing a letter, half of her dress soaked in blood. She let go of the pen, handed me the letter, and struggled to remove the bracelet from her wrist. Are you the third Miss Ming? She set down her pen and looked up at me. I came back to my senses and smiled. Yes, Yang Heng is gentle and graceful, and we hit it off right away, having a delightful conversation. She gave me a large box of East Sea pearls, asking for my forgiveness for the neglect and coldness I had endured since being brought into the Kui household by Song. It's all right. Lord Kui cherishes his wife. I too have someone in my heart, so it's not a neglect. Yang Heng was taken aback, then laughed. I've heard from my husband that at the Grand Hall, Miss Ming III was favored by both the Crown Prince and General Li, and had no choice but to choose him. I thought he was just making it up. I was speechless. Yang Heng realized she had spoken too formally. Miss Ming-san, calling me madam is too distant. From now on, you can just call me Aheng. After I cleared things up with Yang Heng, she treated me better and better, inviting me to share breakfast with her every day. Occasionally, when I found Kui Song there accompanying her, I would quietly leave without a word, which could be considered a harmonious coexistence. 10 days later, Kui Song took me into the palace. On the way into the palace, we encountered 3 other couples. The eldest sister and the virtuous prince treated each other with respect. The crown prince and the second sister were more like ruler and subject. Kui Song and I were only superficially united, while Li Shuangge and the fourth sister harbored mutual animosity. The emperor casually asked a few questions about our daily lives before dismissing the other gentlemen, keeping the 4 of us for further inquiry. Have you divined who the future son of heaven will be, to save our lives? We all tacitly agreed and claimed it was the one we had chosen. The emperor flew into a rage on the spot, coughing violently before collapsing into his chair and ordering us all to leave, but he quickly regained his composure and kept me and fourth sister behind. As for those 2, it's one thing. Ming Wenqiu, Wasn't it Li Shenji you intended to choose that day? I replied calmly, Your Majesty. What I told fourth sister that day was about Prime Minister Kui Song, and the palace attendants can testify to it. She simply misunderstood my meaning. Fourth sister declared with conviction, Your Majesty, she must have been lying then, trying to trick me into making the wrong choice. It was definitely Li Shenji. I looked up, gazing at the emperor. Your Majesty, if you believe that a physiognomist would speak falsely, then any words you receive from me, or even from my father, are not worth listening to. How could they not speak falsely? You clearly said that His Majesty. A teacup flew like an arrow, shattering in front of my fourth sister. The snow-white porcelain shards instantly splattered, accidentally cutting the side of her face. She didn't even try to dodge, kneeling even more properly, only brushing away the beads of blood on her face, and fell silent, realizing she had spoken out of turn. The emperor, with a cold expression, waved his hand and dismissed the fourth sister. He slowly walked down, his steps unhurried. In the imperial prison, I know that you and your second sister are hiding something. His voice was slower than his steps, but it was steady. If I were truly destined to live 100 years as she said, I wouldn't have sought out your father. How long I will live, I no longer wish to ask her. Why don't you tell me instead, how will I die? Before him, a blood-stained handkerchief slowly drifted down. I knelt on the ground, gazing at the handkerchief, my eyes growing increasingly somber, my tone utterly calm. Your Majesty, the truth is, I am capable of telling lies. I had already lifted my head, my gaze unflinching. The emperor frowned at me, his expression rigid. I didn't bother with his expression, nor did I wait for his permission before standing up on my own. Your Majesty, that day in the imperial prison, I demonstrated my abilities to you. Whether noble or commoner, all are destined to die. If you wish for me to divine for you, you cannot merely speak golden words, you must offer compensation. I took a few steps back and turned to look at the emperor. Of course, you could kill me, or even my entire family, but you would not get a single word of truth from my lips. What do you want? Let me hear it first. I only want to ask how my fourth sister was cured of her illness. The emperor was slightly taken aback. It was much simpler than he had expected. He breathed a sigh of relief. Her heart is in an unusual position, not in the left or right chest, but slightly above the center, below the throat. That's why a serious chest injury wouldn't take her life. I unconsciously touched my throat. So that's how it is. In other words, the woman holding the golden hairpin was undoubtedly me. The emperor fixed a sharp gaze on me. Now it's your turn to speak. I raised 3 fingers and swore to the heavens. Your Majesty, I swear by the spirit of my deceased mother in heaven that what I say is no falsehood. As I stepped out of the grand hall, Li Shuanga was waiting by the door and immediately approached me. Is everything all right? He asked with concern. I shook my head. Kui Song was waiting for me not far away, and the 2 couples of the eldest and second sisters had not yet left either. A moment later, a palace attendant came out to deliver the message, saying that the fourth sister would be staying overnight in the palace. The 3 brothers-in-law all looked at Li Shenji simultaneously. Li Shenji stood beside me, looking back at each of them in turn. Why are you all looking at me? It's not like I'm the one staying overnight. Kui Song glanced at him, told me to return to the residence later, and then left first. My eldest sister and second sister also left, especially the second sister, who gave me an extra look. I got into Li Shuanga's carriage. The first thing he said was, Ming Jedong and I are a couple in name only. I lowered my gaze faintly. I know, she is His Majesty's person. Li Shuanga took out an exquisite food box, holding the pastries carefully with a handkerchief in both hands, and presented them to me with great care. Even if she weren't, once my father returns to the capital, I intend to divorce her. I gently took the pastry from him. Your father commands the army in the northern frontier, while you, your mother, and your grandmother remain in the capital. Now that she has married you, His Majesty intends it as a warning. You should minimize correspondence with the northern border. Li Shuanga watched me eat, the corners of his lips curling into a pleased smile, and obediently nodded. I heard that you and your sister can divine fortunes for your husbands. He suddenly spread his palm toward me. Can you read it for me? My mouth was still full of pastry, and my words came out muffled. I don't read palms, but judging by your face, you must be destined for greatness. He chimed in. My father believes in these things too. He took me to see a master who said I have the bearing of a dragon and phoenix. Do you think it's true? I suppressed the smile in my eyes, wiped the corner of my mouth with a handkerchief, and looked up at him. Hard to say. Even the most skilled fortune teller has moments when their art fails. Then why not give it a try? He folded the handkerchief and tucked it into his robe. First, Consider one's fate. Those with an overly strong fate have vigorous 5 elements, they pursue advantage and avoid harm, scheme meticulously, and are thus easier to predict. Conversely, those with an overly weak fate suffer from imbalanced 5 elements, they drift with the tide, muddle through life, and are consequently harder to predict. And the second reason depends on proximity. Just as I cannot divine my own fate, the closer the relationship, the harder it is to predict accurately. I stood up and sat beside Li Shuangge, staring straight into his eyes, moving closer to him step by step. My father also told me that if a fortune teller becomes too close to the person whose fate they're reading, and uses their art too frequently, they might even alter that person's destiny. He didn't expect me to be so close. Lowering his head and gaze to look at me, he pursed his lips for a moment, like this. I pressed my fist to my lips, lowered my head, and let out a soft laugh. Of course not. Parents, spouses, and children are the ones who are truly close. Like my mother, she was supposed to live a long life, but because of my father, she died young, not even reaching 30. I stepped back to my original position, rolled up the carriage curtain, and looked out at the street. This isn't the right way. He cleared his throat lightly with a fist. I had someone take a detour. Li Shuangge, have you ever met my mother? I asked, still gazing outside, abruptly changing the subject. He paused for a moment. I haven't met him. But he must be a very good person. Perhaps your father has met him. My father. I rolled up the carriage curtain with one hand, pointed toward that alley with the other, and turned back to look at him. My mother lived in the alley of your ancestral home since childhood. 19 years ago, a fire broke out, and your grandfather moved the whole family away. Your father might have met her before. He slightly furrowed his brows and was about to approach. The carriage came to an abrupt, unexpected halt. The curtain fell, the food box overturned, and I fell backward into his arms. Li Shuangge steadied me with his hand on my shoulder. What's up? I turned to look at his hand, and he noticed my gaze, letting go awkwardly and stepping back to his original position. From outside came the report. It's the carriage of the Crown Prince's concubine. In the tea-house's private room, it was indeed my second sister waiting for me, but the one who had business with me was someone else. In the dimly lit room, Crown Prince Zhao Che sat behind a low, long stone table, leisurely pouring tea. He picked up the teacup and placed it in front of me. I heard from your second sister that our father has less than a year to live. I want to know who dares to harm him. I will. I took a sip of tea, lowered my gaze gently, and said calmly, you poisoned him. Zhao Che froze completely, remaining silent for a long moment, his fingers pressed tightly against the stone table, the tips turning white from the force. This is impossible. I would never do such a thing. How could I? I held the cup with both hands, bored enough to glance around, and let out a soft click of my tongue. Your Highness, there's no one else here. You should be pleased, whether you would or not. If you ever were to poison him, you would certainly succeed. He immediately looked up at me, his gaze darkening inch by inch, then suddenly snatched the cup and smashed it against the wall. I don't believe it. My father would never force me to this extent. I was taken aback for a moment. Isn't this belief? He's already starting to blame others. I stood up and left. Zhao Che calmed down and fell silent for a moment. If that's the case, why didn't you choose me that day in the Great Hall? Would I not have succeeded? I stopped in my tracks. During the great drought in the southwest that year, the land was scorched for miles. Not a blade of grass grew. Your Highness led the relief efforts for 8 months. By the 3rd month, the government offices had run out of grain, yet by the 6th month, you were still slaughtering your own mount. I turned around, meeting his gaze, my tone tinged with confusion. Your Highness, you killed a horse. The dim room was faintly lit. Zhao Che and I locked eyes for a long time, his expression unreadable. He tugged at the corner of his lips, revealing an elusive smile. Why dwell on past achievements? I only wish to know if there is even the slightest possibility that 3rd Miss Ming would be willing to follow me in the future. From the depths of the dark room, there seemed to be the sound of a sword being drawn. Even the candle flame by the door flickered urgently. Victors become kings, losers become outlaws. If your Highness succeeds, I will follow. After leaving the secret chamber, I met my second sister. Ming Wanxia sat by the window, glancing sideways at me, and said coldly, I knew you would be fine. What you said, sister, is truly heartbreaking. She didn't respond. I sat down by myself and drank a cup of her tea. I know you and eldest sister have never liked me since we were young. Fortunately, I'm not one to dwell on emotions. I just hope you both take good care of yourselves. I don't know what will happen next, but it certainly won't be peaceful. Half a month later, it was the Mid-Autumn Festival. and Kui Song was going to take Yang Heng into the palace to meet his cousin, Consort Kui. I was sitting by the pavilion, idly feeding the carp, seeing that I had nothing to do. Yang Heng insisted on dragging me along. Kui Song disagreed. Last time it was by His Majesty's decree, as a concubine, she is not suitable to enter the palace, when Chiu is not a concubine in reality. Only in name. Yang Heng tightly held my hand and argued with Kui Song on my behalf. Kui Song pressed his forehead and sighed softly, looking helplessly at Yang Heng before finally yielding to her wishes. Kui Song and Yang Heng sat side by side. Yang Heng spoke freely, and Kui Song responded patiently, never leaving a single remark unacknowledged. I sat by the door, far from them, staring at the swaying reins, nodding off again and again. The carriage arrived at the palace gate just as I was jolted awake. As Kui Song passed by me, before getting off the car, he glanced at me faintly and suddenly raised his hand, pointing at me. I was stunned and instinctively looked at Yang Heng. She had already moved closer, taking out a powder box and gently patting my forehead. There was a red mark pressed there. But the mansion is so lonely. You don't sleep well, Yang Heng said casually. No, it's just that I have many worries on my mind. In August, a brazier was already lit in Consort Kui's palace. She nestled on the soft couch, her skin fairer than snow, holding a hand warmer in her sleeves, with a blanket draped over her knees, seeming to be extremely sensitive to the cold. Kui Song and Yang Heng were seated, while I stood behind them, quietly glancing at Consort Kui. She lay on the bed with her eyes closed, her face pale, her hands resting at her waist. Dark blood slowly trickled from the corner of her lips. Sliding down her chin to the side of her neck, she suddenly looked up at me. Are you from the Ming family? I was startled and immediately knelt down. Kui Song turned to look at me and gently raised his hand, signaling me to rise. Cousin, she is the noble concubine bestowed by His Majesty. Consort Kui did not take offense, adjusted her blanket, took the hand warmer with added charcoal, and sighed softly. A physiognomist. I have met her younger sister, her looks are quite good. But as the general's wife, it's truly a pity for Li Shuanga. I stood quietly in place. If my mother were still alive, she would be about the same age as Consort Kui. Your Highness, I am not only skilled in physiognomy but also have some knowledge of medicine. Your skin is as white as snow, and you seem so sensitive to the cold it appears to be a sign of poisoning. Bang! Consort Kui accidentally dropped her hand warmer, shattering it. Kui Song hurriedly took us back to the residence. Half a month later, the entire palace was in an uproar. Consort Kui was found to have been poisoned. The poison had been administered for years, was extremely rare, and was known as snow pity garment. It did not cause death but only weakened the body and induced infertility. What was even more cunning was that it could infect those who shared the same bed. The emperor, enraged and heart-stricken, secretly summoned the imperial physicians overnight and ordered a lockdown of the palace for a thorough investigation. Another month passed, and it was discovered that the poisoner was the late empress, the birth mother of the crown prince. It was even revealed that the little princess born to Consort Kui over a decade ago, who had no heartbeat at birth, was also a victim of this poison. Everyone in the harem and the court suspected that the emperor's long-standing lack of heirs might be due to this. I thought that with things having reached this point, Consort Kui would no longer die from poisoning. Yet, to my surprise, 3 days later, Consort Kui, overwhelmed with guilt for having harmed the emperor's body, took her own life by poison. When the palace servants came to report the death, they also brought a rare jade lock. It was a token of gratitude that Consort Kui had specifically instructed to be given to me. This was the first birthday gift my cousin made for the little princess back then. Kui Song changed into mourning clothes, passed by me, and step by step ascended to kneel before the mourning hall. I changed into mourning attire as well and went to kneel beside him. Kui Song burned paper offerings in the mourning basin, the firelight casting a reddish glow on his face. You know, don't you? I had nothing to say. I thought it was poisoning, but who knew she had taken poison herself? I meant well, if you hadn't spoken, she might not have died so quickly. Kui Song suddenly stood up and hurled gold and silver foil papers at me, striking me before I could dodge, leaving my face stinging and burning. I raised my head and glared at Kui Song. He actually dared to lay hands on me. All the morning guests, look this way. Yang Heng pushed through the crowd of well-wishers, pulled me into his embrace, used his wide sleeve to shield my face, and led me to the back chamber. His temperament has always been like this. Yang Heng applied medicine for me. The death of Consort Kui has thrust him into the spotlight. He doesn't want to get entangled in factional struggles, I said coldly. Then he should resign from his official post. Yang Heng couldn't help but laugh aloud. Then, remembering the recent passing of the imperial consort, covered her mouth. Don't take it to heart with him. In this world, which family would argue over right and wrong with their husband? I pushed her hand away. He is your husband, not mine. Yang Heng smiled and placed the medicine in my palm. Is that so? What about Li Shuangge? He wouldn't lay a hand on me. Yang Heng told me to rest well and not to attend the funeral. That evening, Kui Song came to see me. This should be the second time he had come to my courtyard since I entered the residence 3 months ago. The doorframe was knocked twice. I didn't mean for what happened today. I leaned against the window seat, holding a book in my hand, and did not bother to respond to him. You should know that the divination came true, so fiercely, it left me deeply unsettled. I simply put down the book and looked toward that figure. Lord Kui, it was you who asked that day. I told the truth, yet it displeased you. Why worry? The consort took poison to avenge the little princess. Perhaps, in the future, you too will die for someone you deeply love. He stood outside the door for a moment, then turned and left in silence. Consort Kui had accompanied the emperor for 20 years and enjoyed his favor for nearly a decade. Though she bore no children, her death was a dramatic one. The emperor had no time to resent her. He posthumously honored her as empress. As for the former empress, she had long been dead, so the emperor could only vent his anger on the crown prince. Besides, I had once told him that one day, the crown prince would poison him. The emperor became even more convinced by this matter. It was heard that the Eastern Palace was heavily guarded, and no one was allowed to enter or leave to visit. Prince Xian, Zhao Mingcheng, led the ministers to kneel outside the hall for a long time, pleading for the crown prince, but still failed to move the emperor. Zhao Mingcheng came to see Kui Song, but was not even allowed through the door. At that time, Kui Song had already claimed illness and had not attended court for half a month. My eldest sister came to the mansion to find me. I'm not here to plead for the crown prince, but your second sister is also confined in the Eastern Palace. I was arranging flowers and said indifferently, eldest sister, believe me, she won't die. She suddenly snatched the long-stemmed rose from my hand. Ming Wenqiu, she is your biological sister. My fingertip was pricked by a thorn. And just as a drop of blood was about to surface, I crushed it with my finger. Eldest sister, you can discern good from evil. What do you see in me? I observed her expression. You and second sister have been cold to me for years. Isn't it because I'm the villain? Do you think I don't understand? Why come to me for help when you need someone? Ming Wangchun turned and walked away. I couldn't figure it out either. How exactly are good and evil divided, however, with such a talent? The eldest sister was able to befriend the virtuous and distance herself from the petty. Even among the 4 of us who were granted marriages, only she and the virtuous prince could truly be called a couple, living a content and harmonious life. For the Eastern Palace, this was a winter of hardship. The Kui residence, on the other hand, became warm and lively. Taking advantage of the incident involving the imperial consort, Kui Song feigned illness and stayed home for half the month. Spending time with Yang Heng playing with paper pavilions and burning incense. Inside the narrow paper pavilion, a warm carpet was spread out. The 3 of us sat inside, with Yang Heng intently heating a garwood over the fire. Utterly focused, Kui Song stood behind her, loosely embracing her while offering occasional guidance. The fragrance filled the room. I kept watch over the tea stove, drowsy to the point of nearly dozing off, my round fan slipping from my grasp and tumbling forward. Kui Song caught the fan by its handle and placed it on the table in front of me. Yang Heng turned her head and suggested, "Shall we invite General Li to the manor?" I straightened my posture. Kui Song agreed. When Li Shuangge arrived, the snow had just cleared. He brought a large bundle of plum blossoms to give to me. Li Shuangge and I built a snowman in the courtyard, adorning it with vibrant red plum blossoms. Kui Song and Yang Heng sat around the paper pavilion, the scent of smoke and incense slowly wafting out. Only the snowman was piled like a grave mound. We looked at each other in silence, then set to work to flatten it again. Over there, Yang Heng had her hair ends singed by the charcoal fire and pulled Kui Song outside. The 4 of them looked at each other and laughed. On the day the 9-9 winter elimination chart was completed, the crown princess, who had been bedridden for 3 years, passed away. The crown princess held a noble status, on par with Yang Heng, and was also a close childhood friend. To arrange her funeral, the ban at the Eastern Palace was effectively lifted without formal announcement. Yang Heng took me to pay our condolences. There were many servants in the Eastern Palace, but few titled mistresses, such as Liangdi and Xianxia, which was quite unusual. My second sister had only been married for half a year, yet she had to come out to entertain the guests. Yang Heng stared blankly at the portrait of the crown princess. When she was still well, I often came to the Eastern Palace to see her. Later, many people were gone, and she fell gravely ill. I covered her mouth with a handkerchief. I brought Yang Heng onto the carriage. She was still in a daze. When Chiu, the crown prince, is hypocritical. Do you think my husband can succeed? I hesitated for a moment. As you said, his temperament, he has no interest in the world. Yang Heng nodded and said no more about it, just idly twisting the bracelet on her wrist. Since the beginning of spring, the crown prince had been secretly meddling in the appointments of officials in the capital. No matter how minor, even down to the clerks in the government offices, his influence could be seen. He didn't choose his own people, but rather those who took office today and died within half a month. For a time, aside from the old ministers from before, any newly appointed official who had served for 3 months was considered a veteran. The turnover of officials in the capital was extremely high. The emperor, initially unaware, placed the heavy burden on the Ministry of Personnel, faced with a once-in-a-millennium governance challenge. Nearly 100 officials in the Ministry of Personnel worked without a single day off for 3.5 months. 2 ministers were replaced before the third. After consulting the Crown Prince, finally resolved the issue. The Crown Prince quietly took charge of the Ministry of Personnel. According to Kui Song, the attendant by the Crown Prince's side looked like my second sister. Another month passed, and the Crown Prince and the virtuous prince turned against each other. It was because during the lockdown of the Eastern Palace, the emperor, in a fit of rage, had given the Crown Prince's Imperial Guard Tiger Tally to the virtuous prince based solely on an oral decree. Now the Crown Prince is forcing the virtuous prince to return it. The virtuous prince genuinely supports the Crown Prince but feels that his recent actions have been too radical, showing signs of autocracy, and firmly refuses to hand it back. Moreover, Ming Wangchun stirred up trouble. Persuading the virtuous prince to distance himself from the Crown Prince, it ushered in a political spring. I looked at the new trees sprouting green buds and suddenly remembered something. Isn't the emperor on the verge of death? No wonder Zhao Che is in such a hurry to regain control of the Imperial Forest Army. The world is about to fall into chaos, and the military is of utmost importance. That evening, Kui Song came to see me. He let himself in, sat on the heated platform beneath the window, and took my embroidery hoop to examine it closely. In the past half-month, Aheng's letters home have been even more frequent than last year. According to Kui Song, the Duke of Shenghua, nearing 70, still harbored ambitions, yet he had only one child, Yang Heng. Before Yang Heng was betrothed, he secretly consulted a fortune-teller who predicted that she had the fate of a princess. After Kui Song married Yang Heng, he was propped up by the Yang family of the southwest. I took the embroidery hoop from his hand. If you have so much to say, go back and tell her. What's the use of telling me? Kui Song's hand was now empty. He looked up at me and stood. No need to say more. I will sever her connection with Duke. I made no comment and saw him out. At the door, he glanced sideways at me. Have you been in contact with Li Shuangge lately? I thought about it. His household is probably even busier than the Yang families. Kui Song stood beside me, lowering his head and letting out a soft chuckle. The next day, I went to see Yang Heng, but she had caught a cold and did not see me. On the 7th day of the 3rd month, the emperor celebrated his birthday, and the people from the palace asked me to attend as well, requiring me to prepare a gift. I was in a carriage with Yang Heng, while Kui Song took another one. Yang Heng watched him walk away, lowered the carriage curtain, and said in a disappointed voice, "Because of my father. He gets annoyed whenever he sees me. I'm not good at comforting people. You haven't had this father for just one day." Yang Heng stared at me in a daze, her eyes reddening, then buried her face in my shoulder and cried until she unknowingly fell asleep. The emperor's birthday was only half a year away, yet his complexion looked even worse. I met my eldest sister and the virtuous prince. The former virtuous consort passed away due to illness last month. My eldest sister, who had a harmonious relationship with the virtuous prince, has been elevated to the position of consort. The crown prince attended the banquet alone. Upon hearing that my second sister was ill, though it was unclear whether her illness was genuine or feigned, I noticed the crown prince entertaining the families of several military officials. During the banquet, there were also hints about the crown prince taking a consort. Midway through, I went to the rear hall to freshen up and happened to pass by a secluded rockery, where my eldest sister and the crown prince brushed past each other. I warned my eldest sister, "The crown prince is quite scheming. You are now the virtuous consort, and with your pure and kind nature, interacting with him might only lead to disadvantage. I haven't seen Wenxia for several months now. Even when I go to the Eastern Palace, I'm always stopped." Ming Wangchun retorted. You want me to keep myself pure and aloof? I watched her through the screen for a long moment. If not keeping yourself pure and aloof, then you should have advised her not to choose the crown prince back then. The worst fear is that villains live long. I tossed out these words and quickly returned to my seat, not even hearing what she said in response. Kui Song was standing there waiting for me, saying the chamberlain wanted me to switch to the front seats with him. The virtuous prince and the crown prince, who were granted the marriage that day, were already seated in the front, and Li Xianji was also placed in the front due to his fourth sister's connection. Only Kui Song and I were missing, but this way, Yang Heng would be left alone. You stay and keep Aheng company. It's only me that His Majesty wants to see, Kui Song remarked. After all, it's the Emperor's birthday celebration. We were married by his decree. So appearing together as a couple adds to the festive spirit. Just then, Yang Heng accidentally knocked over a bowl, and the broth spilled over the back of her hand and down her forearm, making a noisy clatter. I pulled her into my arms. Are you all right? Kui Song took out a handkerchief and handed it to her. Luckily, all the dishes on the table are cold. Yang Heng lowered her head without a word, took the handkerchief to wipe her hands, rubbing her fingers until they turned red. Then began to remove the honey yellow bracelet. This bracelet is valuable, it must not get wet. The palace attendant came to urge Kui Song. Kui Song advised me to go with him first, saying he would return later to accompany Yang Heng. Yang Heng stood there trying to slip off her bracelet, but it just wouldn't come off, as if she were struggling against someone. She grew so flustered that her face flushed red, and fine beads of sweat dotted her forehead. I pondered thoughtfully. I asked Kui Song to wait a moment, then took her Heng's wrist and gently slid the bracelet off for her. Her pulse was strong and steady. I lowered my gaze and said calmly, "Ah Heng, have you gained some weight?" Yang Heng slowly turned around and looked at Kui Song. "I'm pregnant." Kui Song was stunned. Yang Heng just looked at him, called the palace attendant beside him, and said he was feeling unwell. Asking to summon the imperial physician, Kui Song had no time to stop him. That night, the news of Yang Heng's pregnancy spread throughout the 6 palaces and beyond the capital. I went alone to take my seat at the front banquet. Not long after, the birthday congratulations and gift presentations began. The crown prince presented a scroll of blessings from the people. The virtuous prince offered a longevity screen. The Kui and Song families presented calligraphy and paintings by masters of the previous dynasty, and I gifted a parrot with feathers of pure crimson. When it was Li Shuangge's turn, he presented 2 Fergana horses, which had traveled thousands of miles from the northern frontier. The gift was valuable, but the loyalty of the northern frontier army was even more precious. The fourth sister gifted a painting titled A Parent's Deep Affection by an anonymous artist. Li Shuangge clearly had no idea about it. No one in the entire hall dared to breathe. It wasn't until the emperor looked at the painting with tears streaming down his face that the crown prince knelt and crawled dozens of steps, using his sleeve to wipe the emperor's tears. Sincerely admitting his fault and weeping bitterly for a long while, the imperial father and son reconciled and mended their relationship. Li Shuangge saw me sitting alone and came to my table to propose a toast. What kind of madness is she up to again, offering a painting out of nowhere, just to curry favor with the crown prince? I raised my glass and clinked it with his. Your gift is even better. I just saw it. Those 2 horses are worth a fortune. Blood-sweating steeds are already rare in this world, and transporting them from the northern frontier to the capital must have cost immense effort and resources. Upon hearing this, Li Shuangge lowered his gaze, drained his cup, and changed the subject. "When the banquet is over, I'll see you back." I nodded. Kui Song and Yang Heng had left in a hurry and might not have left a carriage for me. On the high platform, the emperor stood up to leave, but after taking just 2 steps, he suddenly fell back into his chair, eyes wide open, unable to speak. As if showing signs of a stroke, the entire hall was thrown into shock and chaos. The crown prince picked up the emperor and hurried away, followed by the 4th princess. The palace gates were locked. The hall doors were shut tight. Dozens of people at the inner banquet, aside from the imperial relatives, there were high-ranking officials and important ministers, were all confined inside the hall. The guards led the imperial physicians in to inspect the food one by one, searching our bodies by loosening our clothes and hair. The entire night was spent in this turmoil, with no one getting a wink of sleep, yet the search yielded nothing. By noon the next day, after our names were recorded and fingerprints taken, we were released. The palace gate was crowded with carriages from various households. Li Shuangge draped a cloak over my shoulders, held me with concern, and invited me to ride back in his carriage. I was about to head over when someone called out to me, "Lady Chiu, Both Li Shuangge and I took a moment to react before remembering that this was how the servants of the Kui household addressed me. The Kui family's carriage was parked very close to the palace gate, likely left there since last night. I then got into the carriage of the Kui residence. I thought it was empty, but unexpectedly, Kui Song was inside, alone. "Sir, what is this?" Kui Song stared at me. "Just getting some fresh air." I sat by the door, silent all the way. I was already terribly sleepy, yet I couldn't rest. The emperor had fallen gravely ill and was bedridden, with the crown prince attending to him day and night. The court affairs were being managed by a few capable ministers, but they were nearly at a standstill. The world was about to change, even the sky above the Kui residence was changing. The news of Yang Heng's pregnancy reached the southwest. The Duke of Shung secretly mobilized troops, preparing to enter the capital and oppose the crown prince. Kui Song met with many people daily, the Yangs, the Kuis, the Songs, but he never went to see Yang Heng. She waited under the corridor for half a day. Pregnant with child, only to be sent away. At dusk, I was feeding the parrot by the window, while Kui Song stood by the door under the corridor, having watched for who knows how long. "Is this one exactly the same as the one you gifted?" I paused. Crimson-blooded parrots are always born as twins. However, keeping a pair of parrots is considered a taboo, so I only sent one into the palace. Kui Song didn't seem to mind. "Has your family's art of physiognomy ever been wrong? For Yang Heng's sake, I am willing to give him some guidance." "Sir, have you heard about my father's prediction of the fire in the east of the city?" Kui Song: "I have heard something about it. Once a prophecy is spoken, it becomes part of cause and effect. The more one tries to escape it, the more one falls into its trap." I set down the silver spoon, turned to look at him, and said meaningfully, "But in the end, only one's true heart can determine their own fate." Kui Song sat down, seemingly lost in thought. "Are you saying I should do nothing? The current situation at court is like a powder keg ready to explode. Even if I want to remain a loyal minister, it's hard to avoid. Your Excellency could resign from your post, take Yang Heng and your child back to the southwest, give the child to Duke Shung after birth, and you and a Heng could retreat to a life of seclusion in the countryside." He sat there in silence for a long time. As the sky gradually darkened, lights were lit throughout the courtyard. Yet Kui Song insisted on staying the night. "Whenever I go to see Aheng, I always feel emotionally drained, but here with you, my mind feels somewhat more at peace." I silently stared at him, pursed my lips, and couldn't help but find it all rather amusing. Kui Song saw me smiling and curved his lips in response, glancing around the room before settling on the couch by the window. "I'll sleep there, make yourself at home." I pointed to the window in front of the parrot. "Don't close the window, I don't like it closed when I sleep." Over the past few months, Kui Song has stayed overnight at my place 7 or 8 times, so much so that these days, whenever I went to see Yang Heng, she would shut me out, and even her servants would gossip about me behind my back. I stopped trying to force my way in, thinking it better to let her rest properly. The reasoning behind it is hard to argue clearly. The moment Kui Song decided to do this, Yang Heng and I could no longer remain friends, because Yang Heng loved him. The night was as dark as ink. I heard an unusual sound, got up from the bed, passed by the sleeping Kui Song, and went forward to push open the window. Tiny dark shadows flickered past in quick succession. The parrot landed steadily on its perch, its shadow swaying and falling upon the window. I'm about to head back. In the dead of night, the parrot let out a short, urgent cry. "Ungrateful child." A chill ran down my spine. The parrot continued to call out, "Posthumous child." I staggered for a moment, taking 2 steps back. Through the parrot's reddened eyes, one could almost see it flying over the dark capital, soaring into the palace eaves and corridors, perching on the windowsill stand. The bird's shadow under the lamp fell upon the longevity screen, stretched thin and elongated. Yet it went unnoticed, because on the screen, 2 exaggerated figures were reflected, one holding up the other's chin, the other pouring something down their throat. In the darkness, a pair of hands wrapped around my shoulders from behind. My mind was in a daze, unsure of where I was. I bit down on my finger, afraid to scream. "It's me, don't be afraid." Kui Song was awake too. He still held my shoulders, looking towards the pushed-open window, then at that crimson-blooded parrot, unfilial son. "Posthumous child, who knows where he learned this?" Kui Song repeated expressionlessly, the emotion in his eyes suddenly deepening. I also calmed down. The crown prince has already made his move. The change of the imperial throne is imminent. Early morning, at the hour of Mao, the city gates had just opened, and there were few pedestrians. I escorted Li Shuangge, disguised, out of the capital. "Be careful on your way alone." I took out a protective talisman and placed it in his palm. I don't know when we'll meet again, so I embroidered this protective talisman for you. Please leave me a keepsake too. Li Shuangge stared at me with a deep gaze, clenching the talisman tightly in his palm. Wen Qiu, the situation in the capital is perilous. Come back to the northern frontier with me. If I become emperor, I will make you my empress. I firmly refused. No, I cannot leave. My family is in the capital, and so is yours. He pursed his lips slightly, sighed, and lowered his head to look at himself. I have no token to give you. You do. I gently tugged at his sleeve. Shuangge, back when your father transported horses from the northern frontier for the birthday tribute, it was a long and grand journey with great fanfare. I suspect those people are still hiding in the outskirts of the capital and haven't withdrawn yet. Leave the token with me for protection. Li Shuangge was stunned. Then I go back alone. Then you must be careful. Li Shuangge looked up, gazing at me quietly. After hesitating for a moment, he carefully tucked the protective talisman into his chest and handed me the Li family token in exchange. It's only 1,000 men, all yours. He pulled me into his embrace. Ming Wenqiu, wait for me to return. If anyone tries to kill you, tell them to come find me. I will ransom you. My hanging hand still moved slightly, gently embracing him in return. You will be safe when I return to the residence. Yang Heng's courtyard was unusually lively. I heard that Kui Song had gone to see Yang Heng. I was about to go back to rest, but something felt off. I forced my way into Yang Heng's courtyard, pushing past the maids, and saw Kui Song feeding her medicine. I stepped forward and knocked it over, shattering it to pieces. Kui Song's expression changed slightly. Yang Heng propped herself up on the side of the bed, staring at the shattered fragments on the floor. Her gaze shifting from shock to emptiness, Kui Song stood up, had someone clear the table, glanced at me, then turned and left. Yang Heng had already lain down. Aheng, you must send a message to Duke Sheng about this matter. Get out. She tugged at the quilt and turned over on her side. I can't wake someone who's pretending to sleep, can't wake a woman who's pretending to sleep, and even less can I wake a pregnant woman who's pretending to sleep. She is beautiful and delicate. And she carries life within her. Just by holding the quilt tightly, she can withstand the harsh winds and bitter frost. Autumn arrives, and the winds grow fierce in the capital. Li Shuangge's early escape was also discovered. I didn't have time to hover around Yang Heng, so I could only select a few experts from the people Li Shuangge had given me and place them in the Kui residence. I was worried that something might happen to Yang Heng when I first saw her last year. I witnessed the great fire at the Kui residence. She was heavily pregnant, finished writing her suicide note, and breathed her last in front of me. The letter was addressed to Duke Sheng. I suspect it was a plea for help. Since the birthday celebration, the emperor has not made an appearance. Although the crown prince has not yet gained control of the imperial guards, his relationship with Prince Xian has improved, making his position quite secure. If there is any hidden danger, it would be the Li family in the northern frontier and the Yang family in the southwest. Kui Song secretly pledged allegiance to the crown prince. Since he did not want Yang Heng's child, he also did not want the Duke of Sheng to come to the capital. But Yang Heng, for reasons unknown, delayed informing her father, so the Duke of Sheng remained unaware of his son-in-law's intentions. That day, Yang Heng came to visit me on her own initiative. Wanting to borrow the jade lock that belonged to Consort Kui, that is the late consort's keepsake, I believe it's kept with Lord Kui. Yang Heng didn't say anything more and sat for a while. Before leaving, she noticed the parrot perched in the hall. You keep such a thing? I almost forgot, she's from the southwest. At night, I mentioned the jade pendant to Kui Song. Did you borrow it? Not yet. It just so happens it's not with me. It was sent to the jade craftsman a few days ago for maintenance. Kui Song told me that Duke Sheng once had a whimsical idea to fabricate Yang Heng's background as that of the little princess who died in infancy years ago. How could that work? The little princess died at birth. She wasn't missing. Kui Song rubbed his temples and sighed. There is something rather odd about it, though something we could really play up. 15 years ago, when the little princess was born, she had neither breath nor heartbeat, yet her body remained warm, showing no sign of coldness. The emperor summoned the entire Imperial Medical Institute overnight, but no one could offer any cure. At that time, Consort Kui, deeply favored by the emperor, refused to believe the little princess had died. She held the infant girl tightly for 3 nights, but the princess's eyes remained shut, and she made no sound. By the 4th day, the emperor insisted on burial. Consort Kui knelt and begged for a water burial. The infant was placed in a phoenix-tail sandalwood ladle, with small holes at the bottom to let water in. It drifted far along the vast river, eventually sinking beneath the surface. The water burial of the princess was a secret of the palace, but a few were present at the time: the emperor, the empress, the virtuous prince, Duke Sheng, my cousin. And we all saw it with our own eyes. Kui Song narrowed his eyes slightly, as if recalling the memory. In less than half a day, the little princess sank. There's no way she could have survived. Duke Sheng, in his eagerness to promote Yang Heng's son, is simply delusional. I lowered my head to pour more tea. I actually think Lord Sheng is quite creative. Kui Song tilted his head, glanced at me indifferently, and suddenly placed his hand over the back of mine. Li Shuangge has already run off. So why didn't he take you with him? I slightly frowned and withdrew my hand. I accidentally spilled the scalding tea onto his hand. Kui Song stood up, covering the back of his hand, and looked at me without a word. I said apologetically, "Sir, you've touched upon a matter that pains me." At the fifth watch, the bamboo clapper sounded, followed by a single strike of the gong, which suddenly clattered to the ground, emitting a rapid, swirling hum. I threw on my outer robe and pushed the door open. The sky above the Kui Manor was redder and brighter than the sky over the capital. The Crown Prince had sent troops to tightly surround the Kui Manor. Crown Prince Zhao Che had asked for me by name and even sent me a gift. I opened it to find a parrot fluttering out, turning a few corners before flying into my courtyard. Red-blooded parrots, one male and one female, alternating day and night, entering the palace to spy. Zhao Che raised his hand upon seeing this, signaling someone to follow. "Miss Ming-san, isn't it a waste to implant the weaver-made Jiyu into a parrot? The weaver girl Jiyu is a malicious curse used by the witches of the southwest. Men afflicted by it are compelled to visit the witch daily, often employed to control unfaithful lovers. Is it a waste to use it for matters concerning life and death?" Zhao Che gripped my neck, pushing me back against the wall, his voice sinking to its darkest tone. "I'll let go of the matter of you releasing Li Shenji. Tell me, who in the palace has been opening the window for you night after night, and I'll spare you, for the sake of your three sisters." Kui Song and Yang Heng were blocked by the gleaming swords at the periphery. I stared into Zhao Che's eyes and let out a helpless laugh. "I'm just a concubine in the Prime Minister's residence, and I haven't even entered the palace many times. Do you think anyone would listen to me? Zhao Che, your paranoia is as severe as your father's, no, the late emperor's." Over there, the subordinate returned to report the mission, having killed 2 parrots. Zhao Che, with a grim expression, released his hand. "Ming Wenqiu, I'm not killing you because you still have your uses." Leaning against the wall, I pressed my chest, coughed forcefully a few times, then raised my head and smiled at him. "Your Highness, would you like me to divine your fate for you?" Zhao Che stepped closer, looking down at me. "No need to trouble yourself with cursing me. Your second sister said I still have over 20 years to live. Doesn't that mean I'm the final winner? What a pity," I said with a regretful smile. Although Ming Wenxia hadn't lied to him, he needed to combine it with my fortune-telling to get the full picture. What a terrible shame. Zhao Che left 300 soldiers to tightly control the entire Kui residence. Kui Song and Yang Heng's daily activities were all monitored. I was imprisoned in the room, in the middle of the night. A few people barged in, rummaging through the house but failing to find what they were looking for the jade lock. I thought it was Kui Song who betrayed me. A heng. I stood by the table, removed the lampshade, blew on the fire starter, cupped my hands, and slowly lit the lamp. "I don't understand. It was Kui Song who wanted to abort your child, and he was the one who leaked Duke Sheng's whereabouts to the Crown Prince. Your father, your child, he wanted to harm your entire family. What are you doing? What are you thinking?" Yang Heng's figure emerged from the shadows. She was already 7 months pregnant. "Ming Wenqiu, you say your beloved is Li Shenji, yet you're getting closer and closer to Kui Song. He used to love me, he never even looked at you." "It's you who," I interrupted her. "What did I do?" She couldn't come up with an answer, staring at me intently, biting her lower lip hard. "I don't know what you did. Perhaps you are very clever," she thought to herself. Her tone certain. "I have to admit your methods are quite brilliant. You pretended to be very caring towards me in front of him, gentle and attentive, understanding and considerate, which only made me appear more and more detestable. That's why he cares less and less about me." A chill instantly ran through my heart. "Yang Heng, I thought I could understand you, but what I didn't expect is that you don't need my understanding. You have truly disgusted me." 2 people came over and grabbed my arms, twisting them behind my back. "Ming Wenqiu, I know what you're trying to say, that you never thought much of him, that he was the one who came on to you, but I don't want to hear it, not a single word." Yang Heng slowly drew his long sword, pointing it at me. "The more you speak, The more you insult me, I couldn't believe it. You want to kill me. Yang Heng coldly thrust her sword forward, and just as it was about to touch me, her wrist suddenly twisted outward, causing the sword to be knocked from her grasp. The guards outside had their throats silently slit. The expert I had planted in the Kui residence climbed through the window and swiftly subdued Yang Heng and her people. You had someone watching me. Yang Heng shielded her abdomen with one hand, retreating into the corner and knocking over a vase on a high stool. You might not believe it, but I had people watch over you to protect you. I picked up the sword she had dropped, so, no matter how well I treat you, it's useless, because you only want that man. The premise of you being friendly with me is that man firmly loves you, and I can't threaten your, what do you call it, love? Yang Heng's face was deathly pale as she turned to brace herself against the wall, trying desperately to evade my sword. Ming Wenqiu, stop pretending. If you truly cared for me, you would stay away from Kui Song. She pressed her lips tightly together, lifted her chin, and her voice grew shrill. No wonder your sisters keep their distance from you. No wonder Li Shenji abandoned you and ran away. The candle flame flickered wildly as a flash of silver light cut through the air. I can't stand it when people speak ill of my sister. To dodge the sword, Yang Heng abruptly collapsed into the corner, squeezing her eyes shut and trembling all over. If you kill me, he won't let you get away with it. What kind of spell has Kui Song cast on you? She pressed a hand to her lower abdomen, her forehead beaded with fine sweat, speaking in a breathless, trembling voice, tears welling in her eyes. What do you know? Kui Song and I are family. Even if my father and I were to die, everything I have can only be left to him and my child, but I cannot leave it to him and another woman. Someday, when you marry, you'll understand. I gripped the hilt of my sword tightly, breathing heavily, stared at her intently, and slowly loosened my grip. I won't kill you. What she said actually made me understand. A husband is more important than a father, and a child is more important than a husband. I understand. I had someone bring Kui Song over, placed a sword in my palm, closed my eyes, and made a cut. Ouch, that hurts. Yang Heng asked nervously, what are you trying to do? I slowly lifted my gaze to look at her, curling my lips into a smile. Aheng, why do you think my sister isn't close to me? Don't tell me you thought I was moved by your sleep-talking. I lowered my head, clenching my hand tightly. I came to kill you, and you're too at ease. Dying a worthy death, how does that suit you? Blood, drop by drop, splattered onto the ground. As Kui Song hurriedly entered the room, I turned to flee and ran straight into his arms. Sir, Aheng wants to kill me to take the jade. I clung to his arm. She knows you leaked Duke Sheng's whereabouts to the Crown Prince. Kui Song looked down at Yang Heng. Aheng, Duke Sheng was ambushed and is now missing. Did you know? Yang Heng met his gaze for a long moment, then slowly reached up, as if to touch him. Zixing, she choked up as she spoke. I asked curiously at the right moment. Zixing. Kui Song turned her head to look at me, lowering her gaze calmly. It's my courtesy name. I glanced at Yang Heng without showing any emotion. She closed her eyes, leaned back against the wall, and let out a long sigh. My father isn't dead yet. You figure it out. I tugged at his sleeve. Sir, if Duke Sheng finds out we treated his daughter like this, neither of us will have a place to be buried. Kui Song frowned, stepping back half a step as he scanned the people in the room. Whose people are these? This is the compensation that scoundrel Li Shenji left me after abandoning me, I said with sorrow in my voice, looking up at him. Why not leave Yang Heng here, and you and I escape together? Everyone exchanged glances. Hearing this, Kui Song lowered his gaze, expressionlessly pushed my hand away, picked up the lamp from the table, walked into the inner chamber, and splashed its oil onto the bed curtains. The fire gradually began to spread inside the house. I was completely stunned. Let Duke Sheng place this blood feud on the Crown Prince's head. Kui Song pulled me and we left. Yang Heng endured the excruciating pain, her fingers digging tightly into the cracks in the wall, trying to stand up again and again, but she couldn't get up. Kui Song, are you insane? Isn't this your child? This is your child. She collapsed in despair, crying and cursing. Her voice choked with sobs. You've forgotten everything. You only saw me once and came to propose to me. I turned back to look at Yang Heng. Sir, after all, it's Aheng. Must we let her go in such agony? I placed the sword into his palm. Kui Song stopped in his tracks, took a deep breath, and said, you make a valid point. He turned around with his sword, deciding to give Yang Heng a quick end. Aheng, don't be afraid. Yang Heng bit her lower lip, staring at him intently. Kui Song, I'll be waiting for you down below. I watched his back quietly, wrapping my palm haphazardly with a cloth strip, then bent down to pick up the sword from the ground. Finally, it came to this scene. In the next moment, Kui Song made his move, yet the sword remained suspended in midair. He looked down in shock at the sword tip protruding from his chest, not even stained with blood yet. I yanked the sword back abruptly. Kui Song fell backward, collapsing at my feet. His eyes fixed on me in a daze. "It's you." He tilted his head upward, vomiting a mouthful of blood. "You deceived me." To you." I crouched down to look at him. "Lord Kui, enough. I've put up with you for far too long." I thought of fourth sister, fearing another mishap, so I silenced him again, half crouching. I glanced at Yang Heng and raised an eyebrow slightly. "You don't need to wait down there anymore. I've brought him to you. Now you have two choices. First, if you say you want to avenge him, I'll send you down to reunite with him. Second, if you thank me for saving your life, I'll take you away from here." Yang Heng, with her hands on the ground, stared at me wide-eyed, her eyes brimming with tears. She closed her eyes, and 2 streams of tears slid down her face. When Chiu, "I'm sorry, I can't hold on any longer." She sat there, the blood beneath her soaking through her dress up to her waist. I quickly helped Yang Heng up. Scanning the room as the fire began to spread, wanting to find a place for her to lie down, Yang Heng gripped my hand tightly and said word by word, "You gave me this gift, and I must give you one in return. I will write a final letter to my father, asking him to adopt you as his goddaughter. From now on, the Shung Duke's residence will protect you." With the mansion ablaze and flames lighting up the sky, she mustered her last ounce of strength. Leaning over the desk as she held a brush to write the letter, she let go of my hand, pressing the letter into my palm, and forcefully slipped off the honey yellow jade bracelet. "Just like when we met last year, wear this bracelet, go to the calligraphy and painting shop I often visit, and just give the letter to the shopkeeper." I held the letter, gazing at her, my eyes slightly moist. "Let me have someone carry you out." Yang Heng gripped my hand tightly, looking down at her abdomen with a pleading gaze. "Wenkyu, help me." To be continued.